name is Catherine Magnusdottir, and today we are gonna head out north and explore basically just the wild north of Iceland, maybe even find some trolls. So we're currently around here, on our way all the way up here, because we are looking for a very specific rock. Here we are. There it is. That's the rock everybody's been talking about. This is ttir. I think we can get a closer look if we go down. Oh, this should be fun. This does look like fun. We actually made it down the cliff in one piece, which is a bit of a feat, and well, there it is. That's a big boy. This is supposed to have been a troll that, according to old folklore, actually was out to basically rain down just almost like a rock slide on this monastery, you know, as you do as a troll, because you have no other hobbies than throwing rocks apparently. But this fella was then actually hit by the rays of the rising sun and poof, just turned to stone, as you do as a troll. They have this weird condition where they can't handle any sunlight. So now he stands here, big and tall, gets occasional visitors from tourists, and as you can maybe see, a bunch of birds, which is actually also where this rock gets his name, ttir, which means something along the lines of white coat, I suppose. Yeah, because he is literally coated with the white stuff that the birds leave behind. We are now in Hofsós, and as you can probably tell, we are currently at the pool. Quite a special pool just because of the view of the ocean, the mountains, really gorgeous, and honestly we're really lucky when it comes to the weather, because that means without any fog or rain from here, my position in the pool, I can actually see the island Drange. Drange actually has quite the interesting story because, again, related to trolls, the whole island itself is said to have been this giant cow, actually, which was supposed to be led by a troll and his wife to a bull, only they got caught in the sunlight, again, of the rising sun. They didn't get their timing right, and they all turned to stone. Now, there used to be sort of a giant rock, very column-like, in front and behind of the island. The one in front was supposed to have been the troll man, but sadly he collapsed in an earthquake in 1755, I believe. But you can still see the troll woman turned into stone that is kind of leading the cow from behind. Now that's the creation myth of Drange, but there's actually another story that's rather interesting related to it. Now, long time ago, let's say around 1300s, and yeah, apparently there were a lot of accidents around that island, specifically around the cliffs. Now, people back then believed this must have some kind of supernatural cause, because apparently also the ropes seem to have been cut, so which would lead to people falling to their death. So what they did was, as you do, get a priest. Now, this certain priest, known as Rður the Good, was actually quite known for blessing places and wells, basically exorcising all the evil out from there. So he came there with, he was a bishop actually, and he came with a bunch of priests to bless the place, so it would be safe for people to go back there and hunt for birds and eggs. So he basically came there, held a mass, they did some singing and praying, and then he let himself be roped down the cliffs, and he started blessing the rocks and cliffs so they would be safe, did some singing, did some praying, sprinkled some holy water, as you do, until he got to the north side. Now, when he let himself get roped down there was actually a hairy claw with a sword that apparently started hacking away at the rope that was holding him, and actually made like a little bit of leeway, cut like maybe 2/3 of it, but this rope was actually extra blessed, so it actually held, and Rður the Good kept praying and blessing away until he heard a very strange voice say, "The devils have to live somewhere too," upon which he said, "Fair enough, I suppose they have to live somewhere," and stopped the blessing. Let himself get roped up again, and ever since then, this like north side of the island is supposedly still the homestead to any sorts of like little trolls or devils or goblins or whatever may be living there. Another part you can see behind me, one of the like smaller islands, is actually Malme, which interestingly enough also has a bit of folklore attached to it. Malme is said to be cursed. Supposedly, married couples cannot live there longer than 20 years before the wife mysteriously disappears. Now, it just so happened that one time a farmer called Jon didn't think too much of the curse, didn't really take it seriously. So he stayed there with his wife, and they lived there fairly happily for 20 years. Only on the 21st year, on Christmas Eve, his wife, surprise over surprises, actually disappeared. So what does Jon do? He actually seeks out the help of a priest, fairly famous, called Halfdan. Part-time priest, part-time sorcerer in the dark arts. Everybody needs a hobby, I suppose. So he begs and pleads with Halfdan to please help him find his wife. And Halfdan's more or less like, okay, but I'll warn you now, you might not like what you find. So they actually journey from Malme all the way to Ólafsfjarðar to find the location of the missing wife. So they actually come across this cliff, and Halfdan, part-time dark wizard that he is, gets his Gandalf on and gets the big rock to open for him. Now, what they find there actually is quite mysterious. 2 women dressed in blue, leading between them Farmer Jon's wife. Only she doesn't really look like Jon's wife anymore. She's basically almost completely turned into a troll. She's all like grayish and blue and swollen. And yeah, the only part that remained fairly human about her was actually the cross on her forehead where she had been baptized. And so I guess it is at this point that Farmer Jon decides maybe they should see other people. And so when the priest, Halfdan, asks him, like, so, do you want to take your wife back home? He just shakes his head. And so they ride back. Also, weird little detail about this story that I didn't quite get. Priest Halfdan actually tells Jon to not speak a word, like that his life depends on this, that he does not speak, which is why Jon only shakes his head. And I don't exactly know why that is, what part of magic that is attached to. It could be that Halfdan maybe just wanted some blessed silence. Yeah, I guess we'll never know. We are in Siglufjordur, which is actually the northernmost town in Iceland, and there's also the northernmost fjord here. Siglufjordur actually has a pretty rich history, especially when it comes to fishing. It started out as a fairly tiny fishing village, also fishing for shark, which, yes, is a thing in Iceland. They were a tiny shark fishing village and basically expanded upon that. There was this so-called herring era, and they have an entire museum dedicated to the herring era in Siglufjordur. It's not open yet, so sadly can't visit it yet. But yeah, opens at 1, it's open till 5. But the area definitely, just in terms of sheer architecture, I would argue, definitely reminds of a very rich fishing history. Siglufjordur was also the showplace for the pretty famous Icelandic crime drama Trapped. Like, an Icelandic title was Ofat, I think. Anyway, the English title is Trapped. And lots of it was actually filmed here in Siglufjordur. It was definitely fitting because this place seems very remote, so if you want to place any sort of crime drama or mystery here, this would be the place to do it, especially when it gets darker. And not only the series was filmed here, also the author Ragnar Jo actually placed his Dark Iceland series here about crime and all those dark topics and what can happen in a dark Icelandic winter night that might scandalize people. So yeah, not just trolls and elves, but also murder. Icelanders really like their crime novels. But not gonna lie, this town is very pretty. If you enjoyed this, you can find more content like this, other Abandoned Iceland episodes on our YouTube channel. You're always free to subscribe. We also have the shop and the High Five Club. That always helps us and supports us, so we can go on trips like this and present these parts and pieces of Iceland to you. So if you had fun, I certainly did on this trip, then yeah, feel free to see more.